Hello. Welcome back to another episode. Today I'm joined by the lovely Law, who, if you follow us already, you will have seen her feature in our spotlight sessions over on Instagram and also TikTok. And you were also a panelist as part of our very first virtual event, See It to Be It. So welcome back, Law. Pleasure as always.
Yes, pleasure is mine. Pleasure is always mine.
So today we're going to be talking about avoiding burnout, managing workloads, and creative blocks and how to kind of overcome those. So what would you say is the best way to avoid burnout?
I'd say the best way to avoid burnout is, particularly, let's just say with work for now, I have a big thing about compartmentalizing, right? So as soon as I clock out from work, you cannot contact me. You know, I don't have Slack on my phone. Some of my colleagues who do, they put it on mute as soon as. I have my work emails. So if someone does send me a message on Slack, ultimately I can see it and I can see if it really is urgent and needs coming back to. I just like to put in my boundaries a bit, because then when you start to mesh the two, it can create like some blurred lines and you can't really step back and relax, you know?
Yeah, no, I completely agree. I think off your first point, that kind of always on culture that we're part of. I went on a holiday a couple of weeks ago and I literally removed Gmail from my kind of shortcuts on my phone. And my really bad habit is checking emails first thing in the morning. Like if I wake up at 6, I'm like checking emails straight away and then I'm into work mode instantly, which obviously contributes to that burnout, because you're basically starting work at 6 in the morning when you're not really scheduled to work until like 9. So yeah, I completely agree on that point. And I feel like limiting your intake as well on kind of social media or kind of devices in general, because I mean in post-production we work on devices all the time. We're constantly at the computer in front of the screen, and so if we go from one screen to another screen, we're going from a computer to our phone or our iPad and all these devices. It doesn't help our case at all to kind of avoid burnout, does it?
That's it. And we work so much on screens, like you've just said, that it's really, really good to try and get off screen, you know, whether that's drawing, reading, or just going for a walk throughout the day. I mean, of course, it's easier said than done, isn't it? Because you have really busy days. Sometimes you literally can't get away. But what I like to try and do is, like, when I feel my attention kind of waning throughout the day, I will go out onto like the balcony, and I'll often try and take my glasses off as well, because you know you need to be able to. But it's an exercise that I was taught. So you've got to find different things within your field of vision and then focus your eyes on those. And it's just a short exercise, because it can also damage your eyesight in the long run. So throughout the day, having a literal look at just different things that are literally outside, getting some fresh air, 5-10 minutes, going down to Costa, grabbing something, or just walking around one street can do a lot for you as well, because you know naturally you're not supposed to be sat down for 9 hours straight concentrating. It's very difficult to do.
Absolutely.
I guess understanding your own attention span as well, it's really important, isn't it?
Yeah, exactly. So you just picked up on the point that I was going to make in terms of that idea of we only have about a 45-minute attention span, and then after that productivity goes out the window. So I think that eye exercise that you mentioned is a really good shout. Do you think there's anything else other than working 45 minutes than maybe taking a 15-20 minute break and going for a walk? Which you're absolutely right, going for a walk does wonders when you've been staring at a screen for 8 to 10 hours. Are there any other kind of exercises that you might suggest that would be a really good thing to kind of help avoid either working too hard, working long hours, burnout in general?
I think it's just training yourself, you know, to, you know, allowing yourself to put in boundaries. Because I guess it's kind of like you said earlier, we have such a tradition of being like 100% on, and that's not normal. So I think if you extend it to just your general life as well, so I'm even in that bad habit. When I go to bed, am I not on TikTok until I literally fall asleep? Or Instagram? Or
I'm bad for that. I woke up the other day at about 4:30 in the morning and I opened TikTok and I was there watching like 5 Amazon things that you need to buy today. And I was like, oh God, I was adding things to my basket at 4:30 in the morning.
At 4:30 in the morning, when you are the least rational version of yourself as possible. It's just, and what I'm really trying to get back into the habit of reading. I grew up an avid reader, which I think is a big reason as to why I'm a creative today. And I read that reading at least maybe a half hour to an hour before going to sleep allows for your eyes and your brain to naturally start shutting off, and then you start to lead into a more natural state of sleep. Because if you go from a screen straight to sleep, even if you are reading on a screen, then your brain is still going, okay, well, that's like a light, it's a daylight type of thing, and it just doesn't switch off properly. Fact check that, of course.
No, but I think you're right. There's that whole thing about blue light, isn't there, and how it can
Yes.
affect your sleep. And so you can buy these kind of filters and screens and things to help with that. And glasses, I think they have glasses that filter blue light.
They do, yeah. It's a
So
really
I think
big
you're
thing now.
right, yeah.
Also, Kindles are really, really good for that.
Yes, I have a Kindle.
Yeah.
Yeah, absolutely. You're right. I think I was just reading like a script for my current show on a Kindle before bed, and I just fell into this natural sleep. And like you, I grew up absolutely loving reading, and I really struggle now to kind of get back into it. I'm really keen to. I think at the beginning of lockdown I was really into it. I was doing like a book or two a month, and I was like, yeah, I'm loving this. And then I completely fell off and I stopped, and I really want to get back into that. So I think reading is a really good one. I want to bring it back to, you mentioned boundaries.
Yeah.
So setting boundaries kind of with yourself and maybe your colleagues and your co-workers and things. Where do you think you can kind of, I don't know, develop that discipline, so to speak? How do you kind of go about saying, you know, this is how it's going to work? I'm going to stop working at this time, or can we arrange to do not work weekends? Where do you find that discipline, or how do you implement that?
I think I've already been quite lucky in that the places that I work in already quite like that. However, the first place I worked at was Daily Mail, and and but when you work in an area like current affairs, there is no switch off. But I would still switch off even then. Like, I would have my hour lunch break, whereas a lot of people would take their lunch and sit at their desk and work through it. Also, if you fill that time outside of work with things, let's say you have a dance class after work, you have to leave. You've paid for that dance class. You have to remember that your contracts, you have set working hours. And once those hours are done, then whether you download apps, there are lots of apps on the App Store that can help you, you know, switch on and off for these kinds of things, send you little notifications to remind you, like, hey, you know, work's finished now. And as you're coming towards the end of your workday, you'll then be able to figure out, okay, I only have 2 hours left. The current task that you're doing, how long is that going to take? Is there a point that you can put a break between that and then go, okay, I can pick it up at this point tomorrow? So start to think ahead of time where to leave it off at. I will always be very, very honest with people and say, I will try and get it done. If I can't, I will get on this first thing tomorrow morning. And then that often reassures people. And then if you do just get onto it first thing tomorrow morning, at the time at which you start, not before, if you get onto that thing, then you often have like a refreshed view as well.
Yeah, I think you're right. I think that's really good advice. What I want to know from you is, where do you find that balance then between saying, I've got commitments after work, and also, oh, but this is really urgent. If you could just do an extra half an hour, that would really help me out.
I think like I would be lying if I said that I haven't done an extra 20, but that's only when I know for sure that it is going to be finished and it will be fine. There have only been very few times where, you know, we are working with a client who has the deadline and I can't push past it. It has to be done. That's where I've worked late. But again, you just have to try and work efficiently and then not rush it, because, when you're working late, you're sometimes in such a way that you're like, I just want to get it done and leave. But then when you rush as well, you make mistakes, and then that ends up being a later problem. So
absolutely,
yeah,
yeah. So I think
time.
it's about actively managing your time, exactly as you said it. How long is this going to take? And I think it's also a case of just keeping up that communication and saying, hey, look, I can make a start on it and I can finish it Monday morning for you.
Mm-hmm.
Any more urgent than that, it kind of should have been a request earlier in the week. What about delegating work? So let's say you've had a request come in at 4 p.m. on Friday and you're like, that's going to take me 2 hours and I finish at 5, for example, so you only got an hour to do it.
All right.
Is that where you might call someone in for help and say, hey, look, we can get this done if we split the workload?
Yeah.
Spend an hour,
Yeah.
sharing that. Yeah. Is that something that you do often, or something that you've done before?
I've done it before, yeah. Yeah, I mean, I've had workloads where sometimes I've bitten off more than I can chew, admittedly. It's a little bit of a habit of mine. I'll say like, oh yeah, I could do that. And then there'll be some like thing with after effects that I did not foresee, and that's just thrown on another 2-3 hours, and I think but I will always go directly to the producer and say, we've got a setback, working on it. And then I will often think of who else in the office has the set of skills that I'm going to need, and then I will ask them, see what their workload is, and then if they can help, then we split it. And that's often a lot more helpful than you'd realise. It can save you about an hour, 2 hours. Yeah.
Great stuff.
Yeah. And calling your colleagues for help.
Yeah, another great tip. One final point then from me for us to discuss is, let's say you're already burnt out. How does your kind of environment impact that? And I'm saying that as though your digital environment, so let's say the organization on your desktop or your folders or whatever, but also your physical environment, as in the state of your office. What would you say the impact of kind of a messy workplace, let's say, or clutter has on burnout?
I think that like your physical environment does a lot, right? And I think that having a clear workspace digitally and in physically is going to be super helpful. It's easy to accumulate clutter, mugs, bowls, plates and stuff like that. So go clean those up, which also means you get away from your desk. Small things like that, less than 5 minutes, but it can really help you out.
Yes, and I think sprucing up your environment can be really good as well. So on my current show, we just ordered a plant. He's called Howie. We are plant mums in the office, in the assistant room. So we've got a lovely little plant, and we're just kind of trying to make the environment as kind of welcoming and also as relaxing as possible, because it can be a high pressure environment. You don't want to feel like your physical environment matches that feeling of overwhelm and stress.
Oh no, you will implode.
Yeah, exactly. And you don't want that.
No. Plants are so fantastic, aren't they?
Yeah.
Because they need water. You have to go and
they need care and attention. Yeah, exactly. Amazing. I think that's the end of the episode. Any final words?
No.
That's a final word.
It's a word.
Laura, thank you so much.